welcome back to this new video. And this video is about 11 things that I learned in 11 years of journaling. No, that's not true. I started when I was 9, but I cannot find that journal anywhere, so I don't have evidence, but you have to trust my word. So actually 12 years, but we will say 11 because I only searched for 11 things that I learned. Things that I learned, there are a lot of things like personally about myself, and I will make like a video about that, or like more the general life lessons that I learned. This one is about journal tips, 11 journal tips that I learned, and I have made a list. It's like so crisscross. There is not a really very logical order. I just wrote one down whenever I came up with one. I do know that I've learned a lot, but if you have to come up with them on the spot, that's hard. I took the time to make a list, so let's dive into them. 1. Your goal needs to come before the aesthetic. And I know that this is a hard one because nowadays there are so many great like YouTubers or influencers that work with journals and make these beautiful spreads. You want to recreate them, or you feel like maybe sort of pressure that your journal pages also need to be very beautiful. But the thing is, finally, did you hear the noise my fridge was making? It's over now. Okay, so I think it's very important that we first look to the thing that we want to make. I think I said this also in my last journal video, but is it like wanting to pour our heart out, or just writing 3 pages like train of thoughts? Or do we want to make a mood board? Do we want to write a review? What is it that we want to do? What is the purpose? And how to best achieve it. And if that's through something that's very aesthetic, very beautiful, making like a very artistic page, then that's the goal, and you make it aesthetic. If that's not the goal, don't force yourself to make it aesthetic. I think your journal can become very aesthetic through making it messy, through making it real, I would say, through making it fitting for the purpose. Anyway, so that was lesson number 1. Okay, the next tip, the next lesson is a standard first page is fun and useful. For me, that is, for example, starting every first page with like a picture of myself. First of all, it helps you to break into your new journal because you already know what to do, and it takes off the pressure of like a new journal and the first page and everything. And second of all, it's fun because it shows you like an evolution of yourself, but it can also be like a standard questionnaire that you ask yourself, and then you can see how you answered that question when you were like 11 or when you were 21. Tip number 3, lesson number 3 is journaling can be whatever you want it to be. And I think this also really corresponds with like lesson number 1, tip number 1. Because if you want your journal to be like a museum, and you call it like your portable museum, like maybe like a junk journal or something, then let it be a portable museum. I'm making up crazy ideas right now. You want it to be a fantasy story about yourself, like as if you write about your life, but like in a fantasy kind of way. Let it be like a fantasy story about yourself. It can be whatever you want it to be. Those ideas are actually quite fun. You may steal them if you want. Lesson 4. I think this is the most practical one of all the lessons, is how to pick like an old diary log. And I want to show you, but I don't have a bobby pin with me, but I can explain it to you and then draw it for you so that you understand. So you have like a bobby pin, and you take like the 2 pins, and halfway you bend them both outwards, and then you can put like the round part into the log, and you can open the log. And now you can write back all of your fun little stories. than just from when you were little and still had a lock on your diary. Or maybe you still have. That's fine either way. Number 5 is something I did to make journaling more of a habit when I wanted to become like more serious instead of like only a hobby. I would say it's still a hobby, but I wanted to be more purposeful and really help me in my day-to-day life. I started to write down like the date, obviously, and then if it was like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you know. But that was not what I want to say. I also wrote down the time I started writing. Because first of all, at the end of everything that I had written, I could look up what time it was and I would know how long I had been writing. It gave me like an insight in how long it did take me to write everything down, to write like 1 page, 2 pages, you know. And second of all, in the long run, it showed me what was my most common and ideal time to journal. And then I could like really put it in my schedule in a way that was fitting for me. And also knowing how much time I needed to block for journaling. Okay, so lesson number 6, tip number 6 is very basic. I'm sorry. Not everything can be original. But a not so original tip is buy notebooks that make it excited for you to journal. And I think that's quite an obvious one. And I know that journals can be expensive, but I also had like, when I was younger and didn't really want to spend that much money on journaling, very basic, not notebooks. I think it's a notebook, but like the very thin, basic ones that you bring to school with you. Are those notebooks? Anyway, and I would like spice them up with stickers or just wrapping paper or anything. But I also find, or now I want to read back my journal, I also get excited if like the cover really represents how I was at that certain time, the things that I liked at that certain time, if I was like messy or started to be more organized in my life. That's just fun. It makes it fun to read back, but it also makes it fun to pick up and just write in it. Tip number 7 is make sure your notebook has like a pocket in the back to put things in. And I know that this is not necessary, but trust me, I think a journal is a great place to store things like papers or things that are important and you want to look back on like after some time, but aren't like taxes, papers, or like important letters from school or anything, but like more low-key important, like the date you got your first tattoo or the date that I need to like get my IUD removed. And then I put them in the bag, or like maybe fun pictures that you don't want to put in your journal because they are not that fun, or you don't really have a place for them, but they are fun to keep. And you can put them in the bag, in the little pocket. And if it doesn't have one, you can make one yourself very easily with some paper. Oh my god, that was like my across the street neighbor. It's a very sweet old lady and she always waves at me if she sees me. Makes my day. Okay, anyway, I'm blushing. She makes me so happy. Okay, anyway, I think that was enough for tip number 7. Okay, so yesterday I jumped from 7 to 9 and I found out yesterday evening in the editing. So here we are to make things right, because if I say 11 lessons, I have to tell you 11 lessons. So number 8 is write down the start and end date, because then you see how long you take for like how many pages to get filled up, and also it's very handy for you if you want to read back on a specific event that occurred and you know the date, then you can easily find it back to read back on. So yeah, that was number 8. Now back to jnskb from yesterday. Then we go to 9, and this is more like a reassurance than like really a tip, but the sore hands will get better. When I started journaling, I would often write with my left hand because I hated when my hands got all sore, but I really wanted to get like the events onto paper. That didn't work. I am not mastered in writing left. I was terrible at it. But over time, if you do it very often, you will see that you can last very long without getting like a sore hand from writing. And also, there are some techniques like holding your pen the right way to like make sure it won't happen as fast or just prevent it at all. I don't do this. My mother really tried me to get like a good grip on my pencil. Didn't work. Tip number 10 is you can write down whatever you think because your journal ain't gonna judge. And I think in the long run it can also be very funny if you're very blunt, because I was as a child, I think we all are as a child. I see often these videos on like Instagram from like girls that show what their 10-year-old self wrote in a journal, and it's so funny. And the thing is, I think we all have like these thoughts that may seem evil or just chaotic, but not all of us like write them down to keep them forever there in your journal. And I know that it may seem like daunting to write it down, because what if someone reads it, or what if it makes it more real? But I don't think that's the case. I think if you have like these thoughts or things that you wouldn't say to anyone, your journal is the best place to write it down, because then you can get it like off of your mind without the fear of being judged. Please don't judge yourself either if you read it back, because your journal doesn't. And tip 11 is like an extent of 10, because don't talk yourself down in your journal. Make yourself the beloved main character, because you are. A journal can be completely about you and yourself, me, myself, and I, you know. If there is one place you can like make yourself feel important, it's your journal. And if you start to write negative things about yourself or talk down on yourself in your journal, first of all, that's very bad behavior. Don't do that. You are important, you are loved, you are creative, you are amazing. Period. Anyway, because if you write it down, then maybe you will start believing it, especially if you read it back many times. So instead, write about how amazing you are. And if there is a day that you feel down or anything, you can write that down too, but don't write it in a way that it makes it feel like it's a fact. Make it sound like a moment of time you felt less confident about yourself, you know? So that was tip 11, and that were all the tips I had in store for you. I hope you liked them. If so, subscribe, like, comment. I will probably make like more videos about journaling in the upcoming weeks, so stay tuned for that. And bye.